Welcome to Digital Resilience, AI, and China's Digitalization in a Fractured World. My name is Charlie Humphreys. I'm the Director of Corporate Affairs at Asia House. I'm delighted to be hosting this webinar, which we've produced with the Cheung Graduate School of Business. Good morning to all of those joining us from Europe, and good afternoon to those in Asia. Thank you for being with us today. Now, if you're not familiar, CKGSB, Cheung Graduate School of Business, is China's first and leading privately funded research-driven business school. The school is renowned for its incredible faculty, world-class, most of whom are originally from China and have been tenured at global universities, leading universities around the world, before returning to CKGSB in China to with their incredible insights to teach, to lead, and generate insights through research. And of course, CKGSB has an incredible alumni network of 23,000 business leaders who run a fifth of China's most valuable brands. So incredible institution. We're delighted once again to be working with CKGSB. And we're also very fortunate that we've got such notable business leaders and practitioners who've agreed to share their insights with us today alongside the experts from CKGSB. Now, the aim of today's session is to help prepare you, our audience, for the future of global business by enabling you to grasp the essentials of China's digital ascent. CKGSB has vast expertise in this area with which they support global business leaders to excel. I'm sure this short but packed session will offer valuable insights based on the extensive research and programs on offer by CKGSB. I'm now delighted to welcome to our webinar Professor Cheung for a fireside conversation. Professor Cheung is Professor of Strategic Management and Associate Dean for Strategic Research at CKGSB. And he's agreed to have a conversation today on the transformative impact of AI on global business, talent development, and strategic leadership. So thank you so much, Professor Cheung, for being with us. The white paper, the CKGSB white paper, outlines some key dynamics in the global AI race. This is clearly a defining feature of globalization in the 21st century. Can you give us a sense, what insights did you share in the report, and particularly the insights for business leaders, how they might adapt and what they might draw from that?
Okay, thank you, Charlie, for your question. And the white paper is quite widespread in terms of the topics related to AI. So I'm going to focus on the parts that are related to my research and what I shared with the author of the white paper. Firstly, as we all know, at the beginning of the year, China and the Chinese people are very excited about the emergence of DeepSeek. A lot of people thought that we finally got away from this new Star War computational capacity with the US, because in some way we were pushed into a corner in this race, and people were frustrated that we may not be able to win or to catch up with the US in that regard anytime soon. So when DeepSeek emerged, to a lot of people, that was a salvation, that we can use engineering innovation to get around of this war on computational capacity. So people were extremely excited and even happy to see NVIDIA's stock price plunge, because the thinking was that with DeepSeek, we may not need as many chips as before. But now, after a few months, we now reached a more balanced view that on the one hand, this kind of engineering innovation has been extremely valuable to the AI ecosystem in China. On the other hand, the scaling law still uphold in the sense that we still need to um, try to develop our computational power as much as possible. So uh, I think the situation or the scenario has been evolving quite quickly, and that's one view I shared in the white paper. The second point that I made was that um, with that engineering innovation, there's some kind of subsiding effect in the Chinese LLM field. Quite a few legacy internet company decided that they don't need to invest as much in LLM because DeepSeek has done it. Um, a friend who's in charge of Huawei's LLM program told me that they spent the whole Chinese New Year integrating DeepSeek into their program. In the sense that they don't have to reinvent the wheel. Um, so I think the focus has been shifting toward the application and the execution side of AI. That's actually the third point that I made. For a large number of Chinese companies, especially the entrepreneurial startups, now they give up this idea that they can have a shot uh, in the LLM area. Rather, their best shot probably is with applications or agents, as my colleague Tianshu just mentioned. The last point that I made in the white paper is that now we have seen a very rapid dissemination of AI globally. So the globalization of AI with the help of Chinese companies has been, I would say, very significant. And the increasing number of Chinese AI companies now are trying their best to actually realize that potential and opportunities.
Thank you.
So these are the main points.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And we saw that wonderful picture in Professor Sun's slides, the Ford production line, electrified production line, the early aircraft.
Mhm.
What are the parallels, the differences that you see between what we're seeing with current AI revolution, particularly how China's sort of expanding so rapidly, and then the past industrial or technological shifts that have really, accelerated industry at those times?
Okay. As compared to previous uh, technological revolutions, such as the invention of electricity and the steam engine, I think that the common features are the, the, the width and the depth of how the technology changed our world. I think in that regard, the AI revolution has seen the same kind of impact on our life. So that's one commonality. The second is how the technology penetrates each industry. Uh, it's just like how electricity changed every aspect of our life. AI has been and it is changing every industry. So as we often said in classrooms, no matter what industry you are in, it can be redesigned on a re-architectured with AI, like my colleague Tianshu just mentioned. So these are the two common features. And in terms of differences, I think we have never seen any innovation or any technology spreading so fast globally. I think even as compared to the internet era, I think that the speed of dissemination has not been as fast. And also, um, for the first time, human beings created something smarter than us. Although electricity and steam engines, they are powerful tools, but you cannot say that they are smarter than people. So now we're dealing with something that can be smarter and powerful, more powerful than us. So how do we kind of strike a balance, between human beings and something that's smarter than us? I
Yeah.
think that's the point.
Yeah, absolutely. And then thinking for business leaders about how they think about risk management and for strategic foresight, there's a range of issues to do with AI. I noticed we've had questions in the chat about intellectual property rights, ethics,
Mhm.
transparency, issues around reliability, accuracy, hallucination. So these are all potential risk. How do you
Mhm.
see CEOs thinking about risk in this transformative era?
Definitely, it gets much more sophisticated and complicated for CEOs. I think previously risk management uh, was kind of linear, and then now it's exponential. You have to consider many more variables simultaneously, variables that you just mentioned. These are all new issues, new topics that CEOs are not familiar with. So now suddenly they have to think about all these major variables at the same time. So this equation, I think, changed a lot. And for each industry and for each business, the equation that they have to deal with can be quite different. So you have to now develop a like even personalized solution to that approach. A chairman of a major Chinese company told me that his CIO developed a personalized agent for him so that he has to spend at least 1 hour talking to that agent every day, and that has become a major burden to him. Although he's not sure, how much he can get, out of that daily conversation.
Yeah, that's an expensive time for a CEO, 1 hour a day. And then finally, if I can ask you about China's approach. Um, Clearly, China is investing as a whole huge amounts in AI and data science. Um, how is China positioning itself in the global landscape through these technologies? Not just in a competitive way, but also collaboratively interconnected with other industries that it is investing in strategically. And how is that different perhaps from other regions? Obviously, we see a lot of investment in the US, EU, South Korea. Middle East is increasingly investing in AI technologies. Where does China sit with that?
Okay, China was pretty fast in responding to the AI revolution. Um, Soon after, ChatGPT got popular, it became a national policy to embrace AI, and basically all in was AI revolution. But as I alluded to initially, the thinking was that computational capacity was the key, um, and we leave all these the LLM development to the large so-called legacy internet companies in China to deal with. But in the end, DeepSeek was a product from a quant trading company, and as you probably noticed, for a period of time, quant trading in China was suppressed because they seem to disturb the financial market to some extent. But so what's ironic was that in the end it was something emerged from nowhere, or somewhere we never thought about. So I think the Chinese government quickly adjusted their strategy to let these emerging and predicted ways of technology development to be possible and even accommodated. So now I think the strategy is to develop or embrace the ecosystem as much as possible, not just domestically but internationally. If the U.S. is has been the origin of AI revolution, and we are, because of the ecosystem we have, are good at taking things from 1 to 100. Then that's probably the strategic role that China can play. So I think that's a pretty realistic and a sophisticated approach.
You've given me time for one more question, actually, which is
Yeah.
just thinking about that a little bit further.
Mm.
Um, where are the most significant opportunities that you see for job creation emerging in this AI economy? There's only a lot of commentary about people being replaced by
Yes.
a robot, but what flip it the other way around, and what does it do for enlarging opportunities?
Okay. First of all, we need to acknowledge that this job displacement effect has been and will be very strong. A lot of jobs will be, lost in this process. And HRDs that I talked to even acknowledge that they don't want to train people anymore. They don't want to train their agent. They want to, train their model because, models and the agents do not leave while, capable people may leave anytime. And also, these companies want to utilize or develop their database more and try to invest more, onto these, aspects. So the point that I want to make is that for the human workforce, I think we will see major challenge. But however, the upside is always that some jobs will be created and augmented by AI. So any position related to AI application and execution in companies will increase exponentially. And so we have seen a lot of people who study IT, CS now turning all the way into AI related areas, and they have been doing very well. And the traditional and jobs like HR, and now they are fast learning these new applications so that the AI can do the bulk of the work while they can for like the first round of screening and even posting JDs on these job searching websites and so on. So their efficiency level has been increased very much. Like two people can do the work of a whole department. So I think once you see the upside, probably
Yeah.
It will be a balanced view.
Thank you. Well, fantastic. We're going to leave it there, but thank you so much, Professor Tang, for your
Pleasure. For your
comments there.
great
Now,
questions.
you're staying around for the next session as well. So don't go away. We're going to move into our panel discussion now. Before we do that, I just wanted to say that the report has dropped. If you go to the webinar chat box, you can now access the report. So please do go ahead and do that. And I'd like to introduce Jibo. Jibo is CKGSB Europe Chief Representative, who will lead us in the panel discussion. Jibo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Charlie, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. So my name is Bo Ji. I'm Chief Representative for Cheung Graduate School of Business in Europe. So today we have three esteemed panelists. First, Professor Tenbin Shen, who you have just listened. He's a professor of strategy at our school and associate dean for the school. And the second is Alex Roberts, who is the partner head of China TMT and co-head of games and interactive entertainment and the link letters in Shanghai. You're actually based in Shanghai. I ask you to show your camera with a big smile, please. And our last guest and panelist is Miguel Martin de Silva. Interesting name, based in Prague, but originally from Portugal. He is the chief supply officer of Dr. Max. Dr. Max is one of the large and leading pharmaceutical supply chain with owning numerous of the pharmacies around Europe, particularly in the Eastern European regions. And he has led award-winning automation and robotics initiative. He also ran an executive search firm focused on senior roles in private equity, family office, and corporates, and offers strategic advisory service globally. And that most importantly, I have to mention that You have been to our school through Asia Star program, and we are very happy for this dialogue. Now, globally, AI, digitalization, a new emerging technology and data-driven technology has been changing the traditional industry landscape. And we start to see a big race going on between US, China, and Europe. So I first wanted to ask each one of you, the panelists, what do you see is the new emerging technology, AI and digitalization, are more of a collaboration or competition globally? So maybe start with Alex, since you had a very big smile. So Alex, what's your view on that?
Thanks, Paul, and thanks for having me. I think in my role here, leading the tech and data team at Linklaters, as a law firm but based here in China, obviously we're very cognizant of helping our clients to navigate the geopolitical landscape, which I think is putting up barriers to business rather than fostering collaboration in a number of instances. I think it's interesting to hear in terms of the previous conversations, and particularly Professor Sun's presentation when he talked about the differences between the US and the China market. So we often also look at Europe, which is also of interest to a lot of our Chinese clients that are going out, so multinationals that are going across all three sort of big regions. The US being seen as more of a market-driven market economy. A lot of deregulation, obviously, from the Trump administration being put forward now. Europe being more rights-based, having a much higher compliance bar, which is obviously something that we are looking at and helping our clients to navigate as lawyers. And then China, people perceive it as being very much government-led, but it's been really interesting over the last few weeks to see the legislative timetable here for Beijing change and the expected comprehensive AI Act, AI law here in China to be taken off the legislative timetable. And actually, it looks like China will be promoting more along the lines of healthy development around AI rather than heavier regulation like we see in Europe. So China itself, I think, is looking to innovate, as Professor Cheung has just mentioned. But in terms of the different trade blocks, there's very different approaches. But I think from a business perspective and our clients' perspective, everyone is keen to get a certain level of harmonization to allow AI and the data that goes through it to flow as freely as possible.
That's great. Yeah, it's a good summary in terms of that. I think it's rather bold to say that. So, Miguel, you want to share some lights in terms of this new emerging?
Yes, I would say thank you for having me. Thank you for the great introduction. I think we are still in a very early stage. A lot is happening, but a lot is going to happen still. I think Professor Sun's presentation was brilliant in a way that he explains that our roles as managers, as business people, needs to change. Of course, we see a lot of things happening in the market, in robotics, in AI agents. Everything is changing. Interestingly, Professor Sun gave the example of the pharmacies, the business I'm in, where the knowledge is basically a business of knowledge, and you can substitute the knowledge with all these AI agents, with all these robots in the pharmacies, in the warehouses, everywhere. There is no doubt there is a huge tech race going on between the US and China. But to be fair, I don't think we will have a winner. We will have somehow a combination of best of each one of these environments. And that's why it's so important for everybody, I think, in this panel and in this session to really focus on learning, on listening, on being aware, because at the moment, I think we all hear about this great offload of people that are mainly in the tech sectors, but this will move faster than slower to the more traditional businesses, and we all need to adapt. We need all to take the right decisions, quick solutions, and move forward. And the speed is so amazingly fast that those of us who stop to think too much instead of doing something, I am afraid we will lose the wagon.
Yeah, that's great. Now, Professor Tan, you are the expert in terms of commercial alliance and mergers and acquisitions. Do you see cross-border, alliances in terms of AI, digital? This is different from traditional business where you're quite familiar with in terms of, mergers between manufacturing companies. But do you see, a lot of, commercial alliance and mergers and acquisition activity cross the border?
Not a lot of mergers and acquisitions, but alliances for sure. Some of our alumni develop or try to have their AI business landed in Mid East. But then because their clients are often state-owned enterprises in Mid East, they were asked to form joint ventures with the local company first, then transfer their AI technology to the joint venture. So I think in this regard, AI probably is not different from traditional businesses. But then, of course, the data security, compliances are probably even more complicated.
Right. Talking about that, so Alex, you advise on China's cybersecurity, data privacy, and gaming regulations. What are the biggest compliance hurdle for tech companies looking to enter China? And how can firms proactively structure their operations to stay ahead?
Yeah, thanks. Well, it's a great question. Definitely something that we get asked on a day-to-day basis. I mean, so some of the questions we get at the moment are around those differences between the China regulations here on the ground around AI and those back in their home markets. So as I just alluded to in my previous answer, there are differences, and understanding those are crucial. But even outside of the sort of AI overlay of regulation, here in China, there are specific regulations around technology investments, technology setup more generally, around the catalogs that are controlled by the National Development and Reform Commission around investment into telecoms and telecoms related services, for instance. So any internet service provider potentially needs to have a license, but also potentially there'll be restrictions on the foreign shareholding amount, and there has to be various restrictions on location that have to be considered. To go to Professor Cheung's point before around potentially having to partner with a state-owned entity, even in some instances. So there's lots of additional overlay for investment and M&A in the Chinese market that is not necessarily seen in other parts of the world, but it's been very interesting in the US with the developments with the M&A around US Steel there, and this concept of golden shares and government involvement in M&A, actually borrowing from some of the concepts that we see here in China. So in some ways, there's an alignment and a harmonization as governments are realizing just how much value to society that these tech and data-driven companies bring, that they need to actually put in place additional controls around that. And I guess adjacent to that, we see a lot of more questions and give a lot more advice around import and export controls around technology. To go to Professor Cheung's point again, there's definitely a channel between the Middle East and China at the moment of investment in both directions. But for companies that are moving technology, they have to also navigate these export controls. So, for instance, we had a Indian conglomerate that came to us the week before last to ask if they could partner with an EV manufacturer here in China, and the EV manufacturer here in China could export their best-in-class technology to the Indian market to build a factory there, and that's not an easy question to navigate. So it's doable, but it's all about getting the right advisors on the ground, I would say, to help you to understand the landscape before you invest or do M&A.
Absolutely. So it's complex, not just because of technology involved, but also a lot of regulation and challenges, particularly when you deal with cross-border and in current geopolitical situation. Now, Miguel, so you also deal with a lot of M&A and presumably some cross-border M&A. And you have led an integration effort within Dr. Marks and beyond. What is your advice for companies approaching border M&A in Asia's tech space, especially regarding operational and cultural integration, given the fact that you also been to the Asia?
Yes, I would say we are looking very actively to Asia. And in terms of M&A, I would give mainly two advices based on my experience that I think link with the topic. So first of all, and also connecting with what Alex just said, we need to go beyond the financial DD. So the due diligence is mainly financial in many countries. I think when you approach Asia and China in special, you need to look into leadership structures, into cultural topics, into legal topics. So compliance is very important. And of course, the political guidance and the political strategy of the country. Because if you try to do something against this, you are going to have a very tough awakening. Then after you set the targets and after you move forward, I would say that I would suggest, and I think the best practice is to do a very soft post-merger integration. So many Western companies want to implement their fast Western playbook in China. That does not work. You need to respect the culture. You need to respect the timing. And I think you need to respect something that I used to say, it's the China time paradox. And many people here maybe correct me. And it is, China is extremely fast in implementing continuous improvement cycles. But so it's incredible fast. You see, for instance, in the EV area, where the new products evolve super fast. Compared with Europe, we are talking about 6 months to 4 years in some cases. But when you talk about building the trust and the leadership and the cultural alignment with the management, this is not like this. It takes a lot more time to build these structures in Asia and in China particularly than it takes in Europe. And you need to be humble, you need to be patient, you need to respect the culture and build the trust. And only then you can have a good M&A deal and have a positive outlook on this market. And that is my experience. I hope it's valuable.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. Looks like you now became an Asia expert. So, Professor Tan, your research highlights how successful strategic alliance depend on aligning goals, governance, and cultural trust, which Miguel just talked about it as well. What are the top 3 factors, if I may ask you, that Western tech firms must prioritize when forming partnerships in China?
Okay, first of all, they need to carefully evaluate the appropriateness of their technology in China. A lot of technologies may not work in China for a number of reasons. Compliance is one, and Chinese what the Chinese consumers look for, that's probably is also somewhat different. So whether the technology would work in China, that's the first thing that they have to look at. And the second, the partner that they work with, whether it's complementary in terms of its resource base, whether they can get things done in China. That's probably the second most important factor. In that regard, of course, state-owned enterprises probably are more valuable or more powerful. However, they are much more rigid than private enterprises in China. So So you have to decide whether you want to work with a state-owned, enterprises. Third, whether this shared goal, how long this shared goal will last. Because what we have seen oftentimes is that initially the two partners did enjoy shared goals, but when situation evolve, when their needs evolve over time, then quickly they find conflicting values and conflicting goals, which prevented the JV or the alliance from a relatively low level of sustainability. Of course, in China, you never expect any alliance to work for more than 10 years. But if situation will change, too fast, then that will be very shaky.
Mm. And you mentioned that not every technology would work in China. Can you possibly give maybe one example so that our audience understand a little bit like technology either doesn't work and failed?
Okay, sure. I give an old example, not something related to AI, but probably would make my point. In the Thai industry, the global brands used to dominate in the passenger car business. However, for the truck business, it was always the local players. The only reason, or the most important reason, is that for trucks in China, almost all of them need to overload. So the local Chinese Thai companies know how to develop Thai technologies for overloaded truck, while Western companies refuse to do that.
I see. I see. So this is to some extent also goes to the regulation and also enforcement for that.
Right.
Okay, so there's some sort of emerging market kind of symptom in terms of how business are done differently. Okay, very good example. So we cannot forget China is still an emerging market, regardless of how rapid China is developing. Very good example. Thank you so much. Now, let's talk about local versus global. So, Alex, many global tech firms struggle to align the international compliance framework with China's, local regulatory requirements. And actually, I personally met a lot of lawyers in China from Europe. How should the legal team navigate this tension, especially when it comes to data localization and evolving cybersecurity standards?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. It's a good question. And actually, your reference to Europe, I think, is a great starting point. So, yes, at a high level, people often think that China, indeed Asia more widely as a region, is still lawless to an extent and do not have rules that regulate business in the same systematic way that is seen in Europe or even the US in some respects. But actually, around data and cybersecurity, China has been very progressive in terms of, and some might say aggressive, in terms of actually legislating in this area. But in terms of our data privacy, data protection rules, which obviously impact business on a day-to-day basis, whether inward looking to employees, other staff, or outward looking to customers or representative of other businesses, that those rules are actually very much based on what is seen as a bit of a global benchmark, the EU or indeed the UK, where I'm from, GDPR. And the China rules, we always say to people that are entering the Chinese market, if you're actually already complying with the GDPR in Europe, then you're actually about 80% of the way there in terms of the principles that you need to comply with here in China. What is crucial is going to that next 20% and actually uplifting, flexing your global or European data compliance cyber policies to match the local market. There are definitely nuances here in China that are not familiar to those from other markets. A lot of those are driven by the government here putting more priority around data security, which is akin to national security in some instances here in China, and therefore, and particularly for those that are multinationals, foreign investors, outflows of data is very tricky. It's a very tricky area that they come across in terms of navigating and keeping that connectivity between headquarters and their China business, which is obviously crucial to have a sustainable, profitable business in the long term. But actually, I think just in terms of approach, people shouldn't be as scared as China in terms of how the headlines maybe set it out to be. Actually, there's a lot of similarities at a principle level as to how these rules operate in China versus, as I say, Europe or the rest of the world.
That's very good. Very good example. I can, share with you some of my personal experience. I grew up in China and now live in Paris, in France. And you see a big difference in terms of privacy, data protection. In my building in Paris, we voted for whether we should install a security camera on our premises. As you know, in Paris, if you live in Paris, if your home has not been burglared, it's like very rare. Okay. So when I moved to Paris, I asked the question that why we don't install security camera. They said, well, we've been voting for it, but we never passed. And then we voted again because we, as an Asian family, moved in and we passed it. And so, but it's not just about we passed it because now we have one more Asian who support that because we don't have a lot of people living in the building. But what happened is people start to love it. Those are the old French people. They start to love the fact there's a camera there. They feel more secure. And also, if they lose anything, their passport or money or whatever, and they are quickly, able to find out. And the guardians from the building also find it lovely. So I think there's a lot of cultural aspect into that as well. People may initially feel, scared for certain things. So I guess from both cultural side, we have to come to a making sense sort of conclusion for that. Thank you very much for sharing. Miguel, let's talk about supply chain. This is your domain. So we do want to take the disadvantage to have some of your sense. From your experience, which technology or digital practice have had the greatest impact on agile and resilience? And reflecting on your learning on Asia Star program this March, how can tech-centric startups and companies best leverage those innovations to scale successfully in Asia market?
So I would say in terms of supply chain, the two major categories of technology that are driving the efficiency up is, of course, robotics, everything that has to do with autonomous mobile robots, everything that has to do with the now humanoid robots. And in this particular area, in terms of number and share of suppliers, China is growing amazingly. So if you go to the biggest trade fairs in Europe, you would see 1, 2 Chinese providers in 10 years ago, and now you see more than 50% of the companies are Chinese. Although I have to say that it also, the same things that apply to Western companies going to China also apply to Chinese companies coming to Europe and the US. They really sometimes bring their cultural doctrine, and then it does not work, it does not scale, and they need a lot of time. And then, of course, all the AI agencies, especially on forecast, demanding forecast, and everything related to the cash cycle and to stocks. So the technology is evolving at a super fast pace, and the cost is reducing at a super fast pace. So the return on investment on projects is getting better and better and better. And of course, the path to digitalization and to automation is growing exponential. And all this has exactly the same effect as the AI has in human resources or in finance or in retail. So supply chain is also substituting people by technology, and this is where we go.
Jibo, if I can just ask, just in the interest of time, we need to move forward to the next session. I wonder if you could just, you were going to introduce couple of programs. If you want to go ahead and do that, and then we'll move into
Sure.
if you do that quickly, and then we'll move into our final session. Thank you.
Of course. So thank you very much for the sharing of all the panelists because of the time limit. So let me quickly introduce to you now, based on all this wonderful discussion, we as a leading business school and has a lot of educational programs to help the executives to really understand now the digital innovation scaling in the AI era. So we have a number of programs from Sydney to with the University of Sydney to Johns Hopkins and Columbia University, Stanford University. And as you can see here, even with Stanford, the newly established dual school of sustainability and also Columbia University Engineering School in AI, disruptive technology, and energy and innovation for scalable solutions. With Hopkins, we have the unicorn program in the AI and healthcare system. You can go to our website, find more details. Now, we also have innovation scaling for exponential growth programs for the emerging market in Johannesburg, South Africa, Brazil, and Jakarta, Indonesia. Again, those information can be found in our website. And most importantly, we have an Asia Star program called AI plus Digital China Expedition. This program actually happens in China. So next program is in November 17th to 21st in Shanghai, Hangzhou, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, with 5 lectures by world renowned faculties, including our founding dean, Professor Xiangbin, talk about scaling and innovation from China and their global implication, and China's AI strategy and digital marketing, and AI-driven organizational change, Industry 4.0, AI-powered manufacturing and automation, cross-cultural management in Chinese context. And most importantly, we have 7 company visits, including Alibaba Unitree Robotics, which the panelist has mentioned. Robotics is one of the very important area of AI. And Meitu Big Data Center, they have a huge data processing center there. XTP is AI-driven drug discovery and material science company. Xpeng, which produce flying car, and Hitachi, which is Japanese company in sustainable urban development projects. And finally, Sanofi in terms of the integrating AI across its drug development. So 7 amazing companies. What you will see also, we'll have a fun activity. Miguel is here. He was in China through Asia Star program, very happy. And playing Tai Chi every morning has proven to be very interesting aspect. So I will stop here, our host, and thanks very much for all the panelists for contributing to your valuable insights and knowledges.
Thank you so much, Jibor. Thank you to all the panelists. Now, Anita Huang, delighted to welcome you. Anita is the co-founder and chief operating officer of Zero1.ai. Anita, great to have you with us. Can I start just by asking, as a founder, scaling Zero1.ai right through this period of political turbulence, rapid AI advancement, a lot of changes, how you've balanced the agility that you need with investing long-term and sort of long-term view on the digital transformation and positioning the company.
Sure. Really honored to be here, and lots of great insight from great speakers before me. So just a quick kind of blurb about Zero1.ai. In fact, we are making AI for enterprises. We are a large language model company. We've trained our own model, now also open for great open source models such as DeepSeek, Q1, and other American models. And our mission is really to make AI work. And the company is founded by global renowned AI expert, Dr. Kai-Fu Lee, and where I became the #2 co-founder when we started 2 years ago. So as a very young AI startup, In fact, our background came from technology and the understanding of AI and with engineers building AI technology. However, we do see a huge gap between where the technology is right now, as everybody's seeing that AI is achieving superhuman intelligence, and where it is used now. So AI is very much still adopted, especially the current generative AI is still adopted at a fairly low level in terms of industry and corporates. So our focus is really on how do we actually scale that up for potential partners and our potential actually co-creators of AI solutions. So in terms of how we work, we are actually using a lot of AI internally. For example, our legal team use legal AI applications to help with automating, drafting all sorts of agreements, reviewing different versions. And I personally work, I believe some of the audience is aware of Dr. Lee's publishing work, including AI Superpowers, AI 2041. Those were still, largely manual labor, really him writing everything. But I also work with him for almost the past decade in terms of curating his speaking, presentation decks and all that. And now I use AI agents to write really insightful draft for me. So it's really how I think every one of us can be scaled and empowered by AI to be 10 times more productive. And we are hoping that actually working with industries and enterprises, picking specific use cases to start with, we can really make a proof that AI is bringing agility. AI is bringing efficiency, and AI is even now going to create more value so that, from technology high IQ PhDs, we need to make them do real work as well. So that's actually our theme, and hopefully something you take away today to how do you make AI work for you.
Great. Now, 01.ai is mentioned in the report as one of the 6 tigers working, leading China's AI commercialization model. Could you give us a sense, from the front line, so to speak, what are the distinctive aspects of what's happening with AI in China in particular, and how that model is, kind of approaching product development, data, market expansion, from a Chinese perspective?
Yeah. So in fact, I would say in terms of AI development and commercialization, China had been behind US for about 2 years' time since kind of the launch of ChatGPT. But the lag actually has been largely accelerated and shortened with many players jumping into the game in the Chinese market, including the big techs led by Alibaba, launching really world-class models, as well as startups like us, the tigers. So we would say that the current gap, especially China, finally embraced our ChatGPT moment. We would nickname it as DeepSeek moment, starting earlier this year. I think everybody, all the kind of business leaders returned from Chinese New Year break, demanding their team to start deploy DeepSeek since it's open source and it's really world-class technology. So what we see is actually Chinese market, we are actually very good in terms of engineering. I like what the professor said about being not just AI scientist, but AI architect and engineer to really put that technology innovation and technology breakthrough into solutions and applications. So I'm seeing that Chinese is really fast bridging that gap, and business are also fast embracing what can be possible. So there is actually huge demand that we hear from the market that everybody is trying to figure out or testing or running pilots in terms of how do we really kickstart that generative AI transformation. And we do see success cases, and I do recommend that don't start by, I want to launch a whole kind of new fleet of solution to enable that transformation. Pick something small, plan your baby steps, and just like doing scientific experiments, really launch one thing first, prove it work, expand it. And the current focus that we are working on is definitely the potential of AI agents, how single agent can really evolve into a squad of agents working together, how a squad of agents can really kind of evolve into semi-automated multi-agents. This is definitely an area that I would encourage business leaders to start looking into.
Amazing. Well, I wish we had more time to go into that in more detail, but it's been so good to get your insights, and I'm sure the audience found that hugely valuable. So thank you, Anita. We'll leave that there. Really appreciate you being with us. But before we wrap up the webinar today, I would like to introduce Ira Zaka from CKGSB, who is going to share some details about the report. And for those who didn't catch it, the report is available in the chat box where you can download it. But Ira, over to you.
Thank you so much, Charlie. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for such an insightful discussion today. Today is also the launch of the report that Charlie introduced at the beginning, called China and the Global AI Race. In this era defined by disruption, one thing is certain. Artificial intelligence is no longer just an isolated technology. It is the new architecture, a word that has come up over and over again, of the global economy. From reshaping industries to redefining leadership, AI is transforming how we produce, how we govern, and how we compete. Our report, which, as Charlie said, you can find in the chat box, explores precisely this transformation with a special focus on China's changing role. In fact, it offers very timely insights for both policymakers as well as business leaders across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Let me share with you 5 quick takeaways that we believe this report can offer to your businesses and to your regions. First of all, we're entering a new phase of globalization, one that is driven by AI. Unlike the traditional globalization that was based on trade and capital flows, today's transformation is about intelligent technologies that are embedded across supply chains, platforms, and services. China is no longer a participant in this transformation. It is in fact helping to shape the rules of the game. Companies like BYD, Shein, and ByteDance are not just applying AI in their home turfs in China, but exporting it globally, from EVs in Europe to AI-driven fashion and content platforms globally. Second, AI is fundamentally changing the nature of talents, leadership, and employment. This is the topic that Professor Cheung also mentioned during the event. The concept of the AI architect that Professor Sun introduced earlier today, that refers to the CEO who can embed AI in every layer of decision-making, is now central to organizational success. As the white paper emphasizes, it is not enough to adopt AI tools or technology. What's needed are AI native leaders who can build resilient, human-centric strategies, particularly critical for sectors like manufacturing, healthcare, that was repeatedly brought up, and logistics, that are vital both for emerging as well as advanced economies. Third, embodied AI, especially robotics, is bringing intelligence into the physical world. China's strengths in manufacturing, engineering talent, and rapid prototyping position the nation as a leader in this regard. We're already seeing AI-powered elder care robots in aging societies, autonomous delivery bots in smart cities, and collaborative robots in transforming factories. This is of direct relevance to places like the Middle East, where investments in smart infrastructure are accelerating rapidly, and to Southeast Asia and Europe, where robotics can help address the demographic and labor market challenges that we're facing today. The rise of open source AI, a key topic mentioned today and in the report, is also reshaping global innovation. With the release of China's DeepSeek R1 and other open models, we're seeing a more distributed and inclusive AI ecosystem emerge. Open source lowers barriers for startups, universities, governments. Even those without massive computing budgets can now build locally relevant solutions. Whether in multilingual AI in India, public-private collaborations in Europe, or the mega urban projects we're seeing in the Gulf, open source is a critical enabler. Yet, this democratization also raises questions about governance, security, and ethics, a question that was also raised in our chat box here today by some of you in the audience. This is why cross-border cooperation is key. The future of AI cannot be led by any one single country alone. It must be shaped through shared standards and partnerships. Finally, we believe that institutions like CKGSB, the Cheung Graduate School of Business, and the networks that we have built have a key role to play in this. As a bridge between the East and West, and with deep roots across both academia and entrepreneurial ecosystems, CKGSB is committed to cultivating leaders who can thrive in this new AI age. Through our Global Unicorn programs and the Asia Start program, which you can also find more information about in the chat box, that are held from all over the world, we're helping founders and executives alike to build the next generation of globally responsible AI-empowered businesses. Let me end with one last sentence. In this race for AI leadership, the winners will not be those who go at it alone. They will be the organizations and the nations that collaborate, adapt, and lead with both vision and responsibility. We invite you to read the paper and to engage with us at CKGSB so that we can together shape the conversations and capabilities needed for this AI-powered future. Thank you very much. Over to you, Charlie.
Thank you, Era. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I hope you've gained a lot of insight. I certainly have. If you've got any further questions, I'm sorry we couldn't get to all the questions in the Q&A box, but if you've got any further questions or would like to know more about CKGSB's report, other reports and their programs, please do get in touch. We will follow up with you to make sure that you've got the information. And thank you so much for joining us. Bye for now.